Right, let's get into it, boys. Let's start with the power rankings. This is from Ralph Vacchiano from Fox NFL.
Here's
And
the
I know
guy.
there's a lot of people don't know who that guy is, but here's the guy. Um, I know there was many people that were surprised to see the Packers above the Lions on this list. I'll explain why I'm not that surprised, to be honest with you. And it doesn't mean that the Packers are going to beat the Lions Sunday. It does mean, in my opinion, that they've closed the gap or potentially surpassed them. And if you're thinking, well, Clayton, if they're better, why don't they beat them on Sunday? I think they can beat them, but any given Sunday, man, that's what makes the NFL king. But let's go through it here. Number one in the power rankings, the Philadelphia Eagles. Number two, the Baltimore Ravens. Number three, the Kansas City Chiefs. Number four, the Buffalo Bills. And at number five, our very own Green Bay Packers, with the Pittsburgh Steelers coming in six, Washington Commanders seven, the Cincinnati Bengals eighth, and then the Detroit Lions in the ninth spot. Rounding out the top 10, you've got the Los Angeles Chargers. And I know many people kind of, like I said, look at that Lions being at number nine. My take on that, guys, is real simple. If you look at how they ranked last year, and now you look at the difference in where these teams are currently, let's zero in on the Packers and the Lions. Why would the Packers be significantly better than the Lions, or at least, ranked in the top five, while the Lions will be sitting in the nine spot? Well, who did the Lions add to their roster this year? Can you think of anyone that's like, oh, well, they added them? The one that comes to mind for me is Tyleek Williams, right? And I know they added a few free agents, but they also lost some free agents. They added a corner. What was the corner's name, Jacob? We were kind of high on him. I think he came from the Jets. What was his name? Was his name Reed? I think it was, right? Was it
Yeah.
Reed? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's one that they added, obviously. Now, I think they lost the corner as well, but Tyleek Williams being a first-round pick, more of a nose tackle. He can play three-tech from Ohio State, but he's more of a nose tackle. So, okay, if that's the addition and the subtraction there, their two top defensive tackles are both injured, right? So if we're looking at the power rankings going into week one, you've got to take that into consideration. This isn't here are how the teams rank when they're healthy. This is currently right now, and it's very fluid week to week. Now you look at the Packers. Who did they add? You added Nate Hobbs. Of course, he's banged up. There's a chance he won't play week one, so let's kind of toss that out the window, right? Aaron Banks is at practice looking like he's good to go for week one, so there's an improvement over Josh Myers as you kick Elton Jenkins to center, who is back at practice as well. And then, of course, you go and add Michael Parsons, and no big deal there. So I don't see how anyone can look at this list and go, oh, that's crazy. The Lions are better than the Packers. I can see how someone would think the Packers have surpassed the Lions to this point. But again, Tim, they got to go out there and do it on Sunday, man. It don't matter what these rankings say. If you don't show up to play ball, the worst team in the league can beat you any given Sunday.
Yeah, that's so true, right? No bad players, only good and great players in the National Football League. And, your reputation from the year before may precede you, but it's a new season. It's a new time. I do think it's fair that, there's two NFC North teams that are in the top 10, and it's the Packers and the Lions. The other two teams in our division have no business being in the top 10 going into the power rankings. So I think, one could argue you might even swap maybe Buffalo and Green Bay. You might swap the 4 and 5 spots. One could argue you might even swap Buffalo with Kansas City at this point on the list, but I think you're splitting hairs. I think going into week one, this is pretty reasonable. I don't know what you think, Jacob, but this seems like a pretty accurate list without any football played yet this year.
Yeah, totally. And I think obviously with the Lions losing both their coordinators, that's going to set them back a bit. The retirement there of Ragnow, them losing a bunch of people on PUP and in the IR. Still a lot of guys from last year that haven't fully made that cycle back. And if you want to talk about, they got Aiden Hutchinson back. Yeah, definitely. And that's great for them. But he's removed from a very gruesome, serious injury where it's not like you can just snap your fingers and say he's going to be the exact same player that went out as when that happened. And don't get me
my knee.
Don't get me wrong, if he is that type of player, it's going to affect the Packers vastly because he was on an absolute tear when that injury happened. But as far as the ranking goes, I don't know if you ever covered it, Clayton, in one of the episodes I missed, but Ross Tucker released his power rankings, I believe 2 days ago. He had the Packers number 5. And
really?
so, yep. And I put a lot of stock into what Ross Tucker says. And to me, like you said, it's odd seeing the Steelers where they are on this list. That one kind of shocked me a little bit, just right behind us at 6. But besides that one, I think that's a fair top 10 for sure.
Yeah, and another thing we didn't mention about the Lions, and the reason that I feel like it's fair that they drop a little bit, is as Debfish says, they lost their offensive and defensive coordinators as well. I mean, you're talking about loss, little gain, loss, right? As you pointed out, Jacob, perfectly there with Ragnow having retired. That's a big. I mean, they're going to be missing. That's a big piece to be missing. Big piece of the puzzle. So, rounding out the rest of this list here, at number 11, you got the Buccaneers. Number 12, you got the Rams. 13, the Texans. 14, the Cardinals. And then the Minnesota Vikings coming in at the 15 spot. How do we feel about that? Jacob, you're up there in Vikings country. How do you feel? Do you feel like that's fair for the Vikings? Do you think they should be higher? Should they be lower? Because when I look at it, man, I could see it being something that they're a top 10 and potentially a top 8 team if J.J. McCarthy is the truth. But if J.J. McCarthy isn't the truth, I could see him falling down into the 20s if he's a bad quarterback,
Yeah, obviously I'm biased, and I, with a passion, despise the Vikings. I mean, I grew up my whole life within stone's throw of them, so I can't stand their fan base, can't stand their fans. That being said, I think 15 is giving them way too much credit at this point. J.J. McCarthy hasn't shown one snap of NFL football, real NFL football. And a lot is riding on that kid's arm and whether or not his ability is going to shine through, because, I mean, the Vikings, they really, from where they had in what they had in their quarterback room last year to now, they completely revamped it. I mean, they lost Danny Dimes, which is crazy. They lost Sam Darnold. I think Howell's still on the team as a backup. I could be wrong there, but they completely, I wouldn't call it a rebuild, but if you lose the quarterback position, in all intents and purposes, it kind of seems like it was a rebuild. And the decision for them to move on from Darnold, we'll see if that ends up biting him in the butt. How he does over in Seattle is going to be interesting to see. But right now, I think that 15 is too high for where the Vikings are. But just like J. Cole was going to say, their defense is going to pull them out of some hot water.
Yeah,
I agree with that. I think 14, 15, and 16 are kind of interesting on the list because any of those could probably leapfrog each other, right? I mean, one could argue that Denver should be a little higher on the list than even Arizona or Minnesota at this point. And then you look at, Baker and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you got the Rams and you got the Texans. I think those are accurate. But 14, 15, and 16 look like they could maybe flip, 1 or 2 spots each, right?
Yeah. The 49ers are another team too, guys. I would not be surprised if they're one of the better teams in the league. Now, I know they struggled last year. They were banged up. It seems like that's always the story with them. But going back to the Vikings point there by J. Cole, he makes a great point, guys. I mean, this was an excellent defense last year. Passing defense, they were in EPA per drop back minus 0.03, and I believe that was tied for – actually, that was third best in the entire league in pass defense. So that's something that's going to keep them in the mix as well. CJN says Vikings front 7 is elite. Their secondary is suspect. So I think what CJN's saying here, the reason their EPA per drop back was so good was have more to do with the front than the secondary. We'll see though, man. It's going to be a lot of fun to see how these teams play. And then of course the Bears coming in dead last when it comes to the
here's a guy.
So we'll see, man. Again, Ben Johnson, I don't know if you guys seen the information that came out earlier today, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, but he said something along the lines of like, they're still trying to get him more acclimated to the system and to where they can put more on his plate. That's not
ready to go.
It's not a good sign going into week 1. You know what I mean? So how about that though? Monday Night Football, guys. Are you kidding me? I mean, let's go to the week 1 slate here. As you can see here, Monday Night Football, Vikings at the Bears. Who, I got to ask you, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Who are you pulling for? Vikings or the Bears in that game? You got to pick one. Which one would you rather win that game?
Tie. 10 to 10. They tie.
They tie. Yeah. Both the quarterbacks go out and then they tie.
It's a great game on the schedule when you can find positives in either team winning. Like imagine if the Bears somehow beat the Vikings and J.J. McCarthy struggles. Oh my God. It's going to be absolute panic mode in Minneapolis. But at the same time, if the Vikings come out and they boat race the Bears, you know how much fun it's going to be to continue to troll the Bears and go, what happened? I thought you had Ben Johnson. Like, this is just win-win for us. And I'm sure they feel the same way about the Packers-Lions game, obviously. But, yeah, if I had to pick one, though, I think it would be better if the Bears come out on top because the Vikings are obviously ranked higher than the Bears. It would just be awesome to see them beat the Vikings down the list a little bit, because I think the Bears will do everything in their power to screw it up later in the season anyway, if that makes sense. So maybe still one there away from the Vikings right off the bat would be a lot of fun. But
I agree with that sentiment for sure, right? And then we still got to handle business, right? We can't we can't afford to lose too many divisional games. So assuming you beat the Bears twice this year, instead of splitting like last year, and then hopefully you beat the Vikings twice as well. So I'm with you, man. I think a Bears win there might behoove us a little bit better.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Pterodactyl in the room, man. I can't wait until the first frost so we can get these freaking gnats and everything. It's been so wet down here this year that it's like we're living in Florida or something. It's just swampy everywhere you go. But anyway, there is your power rankings. I just had to add that little fact in there for everybody who's not in Tennessee that it's sucked down here this year with all the rain. So let's get into some practice information here. I'm gonna get him. Oh, I got him that time. What's up?